Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on where you're listening from. Thanks for joining into the Monday edition of Celtic Down Under, the Western Australian edition, hosted by myself, Sean, and joined by everyone this week. I've got Paul, Tommy, and Anthony. Paul, how's your week been?
Well, it was obviously a good weekend, and yeah, other than that, just start of the week. Looking forward to this, but yeah, Trophy Day is always a good one. It's a shame we're not there, but it was enjoyable from home.
Anthony, is that a hot drink I see?
Yeah, Bovril. I was actually trying to track some down and couldn't get some more. Does my last straight out the dregs of the jar. I had a relatively quietish weekend, but I'll tell you what, I'm absolutely shattered today. So maybe I should just be on a bender every weekend and just bust out work on a Monday because keeping quiet has not had any positive impact whatsoever. But happy to be here tonight talking about Celtic. So
just white knuckle it, mate. That's what we all do. Tommy, I see you're joining me in the It's So Cold We're Wearing Hoodies Club, despite it probably being the same temperature in Scotland.
Yeah, definitely, mate. It's starting to feel the cold now, particularly like on a Thursday night at football training out here. It gets a bit nippy. So yeah, sort of haven't got any sort of really Celtic hoodies, so this is just a plain old night one. Yeah, quiet weekend for me. Watched the Celtic on Saturday, obviously. Got another doing at football yesterday, which was less than enjoyable. Yeah, happy to be here and talk about Saturday, which was great.
Who did you beat yesterday?
We get beat off North Beach. We get absolutely pumped. We were struggling. We've got a new team and we're struggling for numbers every week. So we had like 8 fit players. So I won't say the score.
Oh, fair enough. we're going okay. But we beat Auburn Grove, so that's good.
Oh, that's a good result.
Yeah, we've got a big curry night this Saturday for the FA Cup final is the official thing because obviously our cup final is not until midnight, so it'll just be a kind of last man standing watching the. I'm going to try and probably stay off it and stay off the drink until maybe towards the end of the English one, and then that way I can actually stay awake and alert for the Celtic one at midnight. Yeah. So if any of you boys want to come down to the club and watch it with me, you're welcome to. Midnight, it's up to you. I don't think there'll be too many staying up at that time. Paul, you mentioned you wanted to quickly touch on the Hibs game before we get into Trophy Day. Do you want to go on that?
Yeah, I was like, not so much the game in itself, just thinking back to what I said last week was I wasn't sure how midweek would go, but I thought we would probably make a lot of changes again. Hibs would be more up for it, and in general we might struggle, which is absolutely what happened. But I also said that I thought we would be back to nearly full strength on Saturday and probably put in a bit of a performance. So yeah, I was just quite pleased to be right twice. So yeah, that was all I was going to say. The Hibs game was, it was just yeah, we were in full control at 2-1, even though we weren't playing particularly well, and then an absolute calamity by Bain and the sending off for Meira just turns the whole game, and we just collapsed after that. And yeah, it was very much an end of season kind of disappointment. But as we kind of expected, that might be the case on the back of the previous game or two. So yeah, no, I think back to winning ways on Saturday, which we're obviously going to cover in a whole lot more detail. But yeah, that was all I was really going to touch on.
Yeah, and Ange was unhappy about it, and even after Trophy Day, after we got the trophy, he was still mentioning it and saying he wasn't happy about it. And just a couple of quick points to highlight: Maeda, 5 fouls, sent off for persistent fouling, or is it 6? I'm not sure. Todd Cantwell has 8 fouls against Celtic and doesn't even go in the book once. So
see, I don't think he's off for persistent fouling. I think he's been booked for 2 fouls, and they're
no. The first one
fouls.
was definitely persistent fouling. Oh, I see what you're saying, but like, yeah.
Ugh. Do you know what I mean? Like the one he gets sent off for, it's a trip and it's a bit daft, and being on a booking, it's one of those. In the first 10 minutes, does he give it as a yellow? Probably not. But at the time it comes, he was itching to produce another yellow, and obviously there's a lot of talk been about this since we've been on air, but Ange should have probably hooked him before he did.
Anthony, any thoughts on the Hibs game?
Well, I was straight to say, I thought the first yellow card that Meira got was pretty soft. I thought his boy milked that for everything it was worth. Like, I don't actually think he really caught him, to be honest. So obviously, highlights only show you the yellow card and the second yellow, but obviously, I think he obviously had a few indiscretions in between that as well. So, but it was second half. I mean, you're 2-1 up. you lose a man, and then Bain just throws 2 in the net, basically. I mean, that it's kind of hard to come back from that. It sort of sucks. You see all the defenders go like, oh, like, it sucks the life out of you when that happens. So, yeah, I suppose the good thing is that you flick a switch, you put your first starting 11 back out on Saturday against Aberdeen, and all of a sudden it's a totally different proposition. Like, that performance, we may as well, Tommy, do you anything you want to add about Hibs before I just sit roaring into here? Or?
Oh, look, I didn't get up during the night to watch it, so I only saw the highlights. But it looked self-inflicted. I mean, Bain was pathetic at that third goal. That was worse than one I threw in the net when I stepped in goals last year for our team, and I'm not a professional goalkeeper, getting paid a lot of money for it. And the first 2 goals, Ralston was culpable. First one, he heads it straight back into the middle of the box with the guy to volley, and then stupid foul for the penalty. So, looked to me completely self-inflicted, but Clancy couldn't wait to get that second yellow out for Maeda, that's for sure.
He didn't give himself much time to think about it. That's certainly for sure. But the difference, like, you sat down and watched the first 5 minutes of the Aberdeen game, and you're just thinking, here, we were on here. You just knew that we were going to put on a performance. Just screwed the nut. I mean, obviously, you had all the guys walking down Celtic Way to get into the ground, and Martin O'Neill shaking hands with Ange, and just a lot of build-up, and fans there, and the tifo. And the tifo was fantastic, by the way. We'll touch on that. And it was just, you could just tell we were on, and you can tell that with Celtic sometimes. That first 5-10 minutes, you just know we're going to be banging them in. And just Aberdeen didn't have any answers, didn't really put us under any pressure. I think they said 2 shots, and I think that's being generous.
Some of the stats are saying no shots.
None.
So I'm not even sure. Like,
I
some are saying 2, some are saying 1,
remember.
some are saying 0.
I couldn't remember Joe Hart.
I watched it all. I watched it back completely. Like, so I watched it. I was at a sort of party thing on Saturday, so I kind of had it on in the corner. But I watched it all back on Sunday. There wasn't a shot. I'll go.
I don't know where that stat came from. It must have been like a clearance or something, where some stat was like, was that a shot? Do you know what I mean?
And I mean, Kyogo nearly scored in the first 30 seconds, and you're thinking, okay, this is better. Like, so I'll let the boys sort of carry on. But like I said, I just knew, like, we'd flicked a switch, and I went, good, because we needed a performance before the cup final next week. And obviously Ange has reverted back to his strongest 11. Obviously, we'll discuss Owata playing centre half, but like I said, I think it was business as usual, and in a way, thank goodness. But it was just reassuring that leading a cup final next week, and for all the fans and all the effort that Green Brigade putting that tifo and that on, that the performance actually married up with the effort sort of around the ground on the day. So that was good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was great scenes. It was quite early before on Celtic TV. Started up a lot earlier than normal, which was good. Their website's still a shambles, but it was good that they started their coverage a bit early. So seeing the team walking down, getting the kind of guard of honor from, like, must have been thousands of fans there at that point. Martin O'Neill leading the way, Postecoglou, team following them, all in the same gear, not in suits, obviously peasants, not like these upper class folks over at Ibrox. But it was good to see that. And then that tifo with Willie Maley and Jock Stein. Not sure if there was anything in the family stand. The cameras apparently just don't point in that direction. And then they had standing on the shoulders of giants on the graveyard stand. I don't know. I always forget which one's north and which one's south. The big stand, and and a few people are like putting that down as an Oasis quote, and I'm like, well, obviously it's the Jock Stein thing, but I think it's more famously an Isaac Newton quote. But either way, it's a strong sentiment. And then Aberdeen given as a guard of honor. Well, almost all of them. Tommy, do you want to cover that? What do you make of the pre-match build-up tifo two guards of honor? What was it all like to you?
Oh, I didn't see the guard of honor outside the ground before the game, but I watched it after, and it was just fantastic. It's great to you saw Martin O'Neill getting interviewed out there, and he threw a couple of gags in there like he does, and it just looked like a great occasion. He would just love to be there, being on the other side of the world. He'd love to be there and soak it up. But it's the next best thing. But that was tremendous. The tifo was, it was up there with the best we've ever done. I reckon it was up there. I think with there's the one against Barcelona in 2012. Mm-hmm. We beat Barcelona, the 125th anniversary. I mean, it was sensational. So I mean, it was a great start to the game. Guard of honor. To be honest, I'm not really one for the guards of honor. It doesn't really bother me either way. I'm not too sure it's it means a whole heap, to be honest. But there was certainly one notable individual, Ross McCrory of Aberdeen, standing with his hands behind his back and being a complete, can't say the word on here, but yeah, he was just showing his true colours, which is not surprising. His brother played in goals a couple of weeks ago against us, so but it's pretty sad that he can't be a bit more professional than that when the rest of his teammates are showing that kind of respect.
Did Hibs give us one? I don't remember.
Don't think so.
I didn't see it, but Celtic TV coverage wasn't great, so I don't know. Like, so does that mean that Aberdeen were the only team we played that gave us one? I mean, look, fair play. Like, you know, I still don't like
Barry
it.
Robson,
I'd rather.
It's a touch
Yeah,
of class by Barry Robson. Let's be honest, that's where it's come from. I would say.
From my point of view, I'd rather it just see it not be a tradition and maybe just have, like, instead of a guard of honor, just have some show of respect, like maybe even just like coming out in the pitch to applaud the trophy lift or something like that, or like the same way you should be doing at a cup final where you're standing there with runners up medal, you should be applauding the other team lifting the trophy, like that kind of thing. I think the guard of honor is a bit cheesy, to be honest. But anyway, anyone dissenting opinions on that one?
I'm not strongly for or against. It really doesn't bother me one way or the other.
Yeah, to me, it just became an embarrassment after the John Terry thing, where he got subbed off in the 26th minute, and all the Chelsea players went over to do a guard of honor during the game. I don't know if you remember that utter embarrassment. That's what the EPL is all about. Get your camera phones out. It's all about keeping the Asian market entertained, right? Paul, game overall performance against Aberdeen. What do you reckon?
Yeah, well, as Anthony said, we came out flying right from the start, and you knew they were up for it, as they kind of had to be, as we've touched on. I guess the only point of note that I think is worth mentioning is, and we've mentioned this in relation to us and our poor performances once the season was done, Aberdeen had nothing to play for. They secured third place in the week. Robson's comments afterwards were pretty stinging on his team. He said he was really disappointed. It wasn't good enough. But he did caveat that with saying he thought it was just a game too far. Like they've had a really strong run. They've put everything into securing that third spot, and obviously they had a bit of a relief after, like a release, if you like, of that stress and tension, having secured third. Much like our guys dropping off performance in the last couple of games, same thing. So we looked great, don't get me wrong, but we weren't particularly tested. They didn't really throw a lot at us. There wasn't much for us to, it was pretty much a procession from start to finish, certainly once the first goal went in. But we did play well. The tempo was much better. The midfield pressed, the midfield and the attack pressed much better than we've seen. They worked as a unit. They got around people, won the ball back, and yeah, we were pretty relentless. So yeah, all in all, good performance going into the cup final. Hopefully some of those knocks and injuries that have happened are clear up, and it'd be nice to see those guys back out again next weekend.
And it's been a good few weeks. I think going back to the Kilmarnock game, I think was the last time we scored that many goals. That first half, last time we played that well. Anthony, what was your kind of pick of the goals? What did you? There was a lot to choose from there. Different change from
there was.
Games,
being a centre half, big Carl Starfelt. He could have had one in the first half. It really good save by the goalkeeper to deny him in the first half. He got one in the second half, but I think Kyogo's first goal for me is still the best goal. I mean, the passing was crisp. Cal Mack out to Greg Taylor, who just finds himself in that pocket of space
amazing pass
that he has the capability of being and doing. And then he slots it through to Kyogo, who sends a dummy times two to two of the Aberdeen players and curls it back into the near corner sort of thing. And that was a great goal. And that was just like that set the party going. And yeah, I was just, there was not really, I didn't feel like there was no looking back from that point. I just went, yeah, this is going to be a procession. And then obviously not long after, Cal Mack has a long-range effort. The keeper does a bit of a Joe Hart and sort of spills it back out into the goal mouth, and Kyogo's the quickest to react and smashes it home, makes it 2-0, and that's him sewing up, or that was him sewing up the golden boot for the league for the season. I think Kevin Van Der Been, he got one last night, I think. So
Did he even get one?
he got one. He definitely got one. So I think
yeah.
that means Kyogo won it by two goals. I think.
Yeah, 27-25. I think it was.
Which is, for a guy that doesn't hit penalties, is it's a remarkable season. And obviously hearts and mouth when he went down, he caught one, and hopefully just precautionary. And he's just one of these guys that's like, yeah, take me off, wrap me in cotton wool. Because it'd be a shame if he's not out there next weekend. And even Big Angie says like he's played a cup final with one leg before, so unless both of his legs are buggered, he's playing, sort of thing. So that fills you a bit of confidence. But the wee man was brilliant on Saturday, and yeah, like I said, he got the party started in style.
And Kaiser agrees with you. Kyogo's goal was outstanding. And I'm sure he'll be wanting to get up and fit for the cup final, as well as that summer tour with the Japanese squad that Paul's sporting the samurai blue for. I'm sure he'll be looking to wear that as well. Some other comments. We had Big Red, 0% shots on goal from Aberdeen. I think it would actually be a syntax error if you try to do it on a calculator. Can't actually divide by 0. Kaiser saying 0 shots on goal. It was all about us, amazing rehearsal for the final. And Andrew reads, AJ made a difference. Aberdeen were on holiday. Tommy, were Aberdeen bad or were we good? And how much of a difference did having Alistair Johnson back in the team make?
Yeah, well, Alistair Johnson was, you can see the step up in quality straight away. Just some of his touches on the ball. I think there was one point, just a really quick feet, just to sort of dink it past Johnny Hayes. But it's not only that, he's so strong defensively. And it really loses a one-on-one, and his distribution is just getting better and better when he's going forward. So I think he really made us look a lot stronger at the back, and he really helped Awata settle back into the game. Because I thought Awata against St Mirren sort of struggled a little bit. I think we had Rouse in that game. So, yeah, and I thought AJ was really good. Overall, I thought we were tremendous. As I think it was Paul said at the top, or Anthony, the first 5 or 10 minutes, you could tell that we were on straight away. The pressing was at a level that we've not seen in several months for me. And Aberdeen were poor, but they weren't given a chance. The pressing was just so intense and so constant from Celtic that all they could do was kick the ball away and then come back, and we were back on top of them again. So we really didn't give them a chance to breathe. And by half time, it could have been 5 or 6. It was absolutely tremendous from us. I can't remember this second half of this year us playing as well and as consistently for 90 minutes as we did on Saturday. So I thought we were really, really good.
Yeah, we've definitely done it this season, but you're right. It was just a return to it at the weekend there. Aberdeen, like the first 10 minutes of each half, they kind of came out trying to press high, and the kind of way some teams have had success against us recently. But it just didn't. And like the players, like when you come out like that, it's obvious that's the instructions from the manager. But the players just fell back. Like we were just playing little triangles around them, and they just went into their shells, and they couldn't get out. And it was just one-way traffic. It was really enjoyable to watch, really entertaining. We had those triangles out from the back that we haven't been able to do recently. That we got killed at Ibrox, we got killed at Easter Road, not been able to do. Even struggled to do it against St Mirren. A lot of one touch in the middle. Big Red, Kalmack once again flies under the radar. He was brilliant, particularly in the first half. I thought the whole midfield was brilliant. Paul, what did you make of the midfield 3?
I thought the midfield 3 were excellent, but I'd add and call it a midfield 4 because Taylor being back in and pulling in like regularly, he was, and especially in the first half, he was basically sitting in Kalmack's role, and McGregor was higher up or on the right. And obviously he slid in the great pass for the opener, as Anthony's already touched on. So I really think, and we've talked about this a lot, Taylor really makes a massive difference when he plays because he properly tucks in and inverts way more than whoever's on the right-hand side. He does it more than AJ. He does it more than Ralston. He does it more than Bernabei if he's playing. So he definitely he's the one that steps in way more and fills that midfield. But the other 3, they all had great games. There's a comment there saying O'Reilly had a cracking game. He absolutely did. I think he was maybe just edged by Hatate, who was at the heart of everything. And yeah, they just played lovely stuff. Yes, a few passes went astray when they tried the odd more adventurous progressive pass, but more often not retained possession. Linked in with the wings really well, and Kyogo. And yeah, just a comfortable performance, and they pressed as a unit a lot better than they have for a little while. They've all looked hungry and at it and back to the intensity levels that we expect. And again, 2 to 3 players around any Aberdeen player with the ball, just either forcing mistakes or winning it back there and then. So yeah, the midfield had a great game.
Yeah, and yeah, I was really enjoying that. That was, to me, the most enjoyable part. In terms of, we also had, we think this is going to be maybe, pretty close to the cup final lineup. In terms of, so obviously the defence has been a bit ropey since we won the league against Hearts. So we conceded 9 goals across 3 games. So I went and checked the stats on it, and if you include cup games, the previous 19 games, so from January 2nd after Ibrox, like from that 2-2 game in Ibrox, there's 19 games between us winning the league and that. And in those 19 games, we conceded 10 goals in total. And then in those 3 games, we've conceded 9. So like, there's obviously, and I know you're saying Carter Vickers goes out, etc., but there's a massive, like, I mean, that's like stark. Like, 3 goals, like going from less than half a goal per game to 3 goals per game is pretty brutal. And you could almost say like it's a whole team issue, because Iwata, like Peter McGowan saying shout out to Iwata, who improved massively. I mean, did he, Anthony, or did they just have nothing to do? Was Starfelt imperious at the weekend? I mean, what's going on here?
They didn't have much to do, but what they did do, they did it well. They didn't like cough up a chance or look shaky or ropey or anything like that. So you got to say that you can only play what you're up against. I think the biggest thing for Iwata is having AJ at right back and Greg Taylor at left back. It makes such a difference. Our team is relying on those fullbacks bombing on, inverting, being part of the attacking play. And Greg Taylor and Alistair Johnson are just a level above Bernabe and Anthony Ralston. There's just, that's a fact. And it showed on Saturday. Like, they're just imperious, and they take the pressure off the centre halves, because if your fullbacks are firing, putting the cover and tackle in, blocking the cross, your days of centre half is a lot easier when you've got a fullback who's capable. So I think a lot. I'm not taking away from Iwata. I thought he played well. I thought Starfelt played well. He obviously got a goal. But I think the fullbacks, and I'd say this in the group chat during the week, I said we really need to consider, trying to strengthen those positions, but try and get a better backup for AJ and for Greg, because you flog those players a lot. They're expected to do a lot. They're going to be more prone for injury. And I find that the step down at the moment between those two and Anthony Ralston and Bernabe a bit of an issue. But yeah, I think Iwata's capable of filling in, and I think he'll be the partner for Starfelt in the cup final on Saturday, because Welsh was on the bench, and obviously he hasn't been playing. He's been injured, but he couldn't break in. And UT seems to be missing in action, so I don't know what's going on there. But yeah, so it definitely seems like Iwata will be the man in the back with Starfelt.
Yeah, it just seems like Yuki's dropped, but you never know. Maybe he's injured, maybe, who knows, but it does feel like he's been dropped. One player that came in, and the one that, in light of the suspension from midweek, and one that may or may not be playing next week, it seems the most likely to be dropping out if it is indeed a dress rehearsal for the cup. But it also looked like he was playing for a cup final position in that first half before he went off at half time. Tommy, what do you make of Leila Bada?
I thought Barry was excellent, and sort of followed on from, I think, even at Ibrox in the first half, he was probably one of our better players. He actually looked quite threatening, and he put a couple of good passes in. And one thing I like about Barry is he's really direct. He's really direct. He'll get the ball, he'll get the head down, he'll go at you. A couple of things that he's maybe not been so good at in the past is he doesn't really have too many tricks to get past the player and sort of, beat a man. And he actually done that a few times on Saturday, which really impressed me. There was one in the first half, in particular early on, where I think he got the ball around the halfway line, and lovely feet to get past the first guy and then get past another two. And then sort of overhit the cross. But then that's the one that sort of come off McCrory's arm or shoulder, whatever you want to call it. But I really like Ibarra. He's always had goals. And for me, it's just he's still young. It's just trying to add those little extra things to his game to just make him a bit more dangerous. So if he can add the trickery, beating a man, dropping a shoulder here and there, I really like him. I think he could be a really valuable player for us next year if we keep him. And he was really good on Saturday. It's a shame he got injured.
Did you think that was a penalty?
At first glance, I did, but then the second, his arm's sort of out, isn't it? So if it hits the bottom part of his arm, it's definitely a penalty. But then it sort of hits him sort of up towards his shoulder, and his shoulder sort of tucked in. So I'd be disappointed to get given against us, but I'm not 100% sure. You would have probably seen them given in the past.
Yeah. Paul, Anthony, penalty? Not penalty?
I don't think so. I went and checked the rules again because there's this thing being going around that it's the shirt below the shirt sleeve, which depends on how. Yeah, and then it's in line with the bottom of your armpit is what it says in the actual laws of the game, which a marginal couple inches down your shoulder. So it was, the ball's pretty big on a human arm, isn't it? So it probably crossed a little bit of that section. So I think he did move it out slightly, but to Tommy's point, I think you'd be a bit aggrieved if it was given against you. So yeah, not too many complaints.
My biggest grief with Alan Muir was just that he wouldn't play advantage. Like the number of times he blew up early and we were away, and then he talks to the Aberdeen player. It's like, well, you either book him or you play on. Like you don't stop the game just to have a chat to a player. So that for me was the biggest frustration. He did to Aberdeen once or twice as well. Like he just generally blew up early rather than just letting the play go. So that was my biggest bugbear with the referee in general. Everything else was by the by, but yeah, just did not let it flow at all. Really,
there was one in the second half where he played advantage the first time, and then there was another advantage, and then he blew up the second time. I was like, literally, you've shown a lack of consistency in the space of about 30 seconds. So yeah, I agree that the referee was poor, but
he's not one of Scotland's best refs, so that'll tell you something.
The bar's not particularly high, is it? So
exactly. So,
we don't get him very often. Yeah, there's a reason we don't get him very often. Yeah. I'm actually going to disagree with you guys. I think it should have been a penalty. Peter McGowan saying that was a handball, hit his bicep. Big Red, how was that not a penalty? The ball was in the sky for an hour, and to me that was one of the biggest things because that is supposed to be taken into consideration when you're making these decisions for a handball. Is how long is the ball, how far and how fast has the ball been traveling? And he's not wrong. You could have counted like 1, 2, 3. Do you know, maybe a count of 4. That ball was in the air and he's watching it come down, and then he still dropped it onto his arm. I do think his arm was out. I do think it was closer to his elbow than it was his shoulder, as Peter McGowan said about the bicep. My opinion is that's a penalty. But I'm also going to say that VAR was correct not to intervene, because I think when we're trying to move towards how VAR should be used, which is quick glance, as in if you can't get it on one quick replay, then you shouldn't be. That's not clear and obvious, and they shouldn't be interfering. So if you like watch that 3 or 4 times, change angle, slow it down, I think you give a penalty. But VAR is supposed to be clear and obvious, and I'm saying, right, just get on with it. I'm sick of this 3-4 minute delays we were getting. I'm glad we're not getting them anymore. I'm happy that VAR is being used that way now. That's my feeling on it. But one thing I will say is Callum McGregor started getting on to Alan Muir about what you guys are saying about the advantage thing, and also just about the time wasting. I want Callum McGregor to be doing more of that. I'm sick of these teams time wasting. It's become a weekly tactic now, and it's against the rules of the game. But if referees are letting them do it, then why would they not do it? It's absolutely one of the levers that they can get on us if referees allow it. And I'm getting sick of it, to be honest. This is not a good advert for football in our country if we're letting teams do this. Anyone disagree?
Not at all. Not at all. But I mean, on Saturday, actually watching the game, I didn't think they were as bad as it has been at times. But then
there was the old 2 balls in the pitch thing again.
Yeah, I saw that. And there was one time I saw Callum McGregor actually trying to get the ball back on the pitch when one of the ball boys had given the ball to AJ and he'd thrown it back in, and McGregor didn't even realise. So he's obviously thinking, well, we're not getting the ball back in quick enough because of what they're doing. But it wasn't as bad as we've seen in the past, like teams like Motherwell and St Mirren and those. But yeah, I mean, I totally agree with your point. It's not something we want to see, but unfortunately, I don't know. And until the referees get stronger on it and actually start booking people for it, then it's going to continue. And I don't think we've got the referees with the fortitude to actually make those decisions and book someone early for it and snuff it out. We just don't have it, unfortunately.
Yeah, and it's the old even stuff like ball boys chuck the ball in, like goes out for a goal kick. Ball boy chucks the ball into the 6-yard box, and the goalkeeper walks about as if he's got like a cane.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like as if there's no ball there. Like he's just going for a wander around his box before he even tries to pick it up, goes to the other side, and all that nonsense. It's driving me nuts, to be honest. And Michael Ross happens in every league, in every competition, but I swear it's got so much worse in the last few months. I don't know why. Like teams have realized they're going to get away with it, so they're just being allowed to do it. And I think refs are just giving teams a handicap against us. They're like, I feel bad for them. They're playing Celtic. I don't know. Anthony, something to that? Or do you not want to get involved in a referee debate about that?
Not when we won 5-0. But yeah, I just think that, like it's week on week. I mean, I agree with Tommy. I don't think it was as bad in the Aberdeen game compared to previous weeks. There were some weeks where it was shocking, and it was every single time they would stop us from taking quick free kicks and stuff like that, and really try to disrupt our plays. So it's definitely something that Cal should be calling out when he sees it. But ultimately, you're relying on the officials, and we know what they are like. I want to turn our attention to Jota, because I was having an interesting discussion with my old man on watching the game on Saturday, and I think he's become his new favourite whipping boy, because it used to be Greg Taylor, now he's moved on to Jota. I thought Jota was in amongst it, and then obviously near the end he sets up for it was a great cross, picked him out. Oh's peeled off his man and headed it to make it 4-0, and then did the wee griddy, and we wind up to Cantwell. And then has the free kick, unlucky, and then I was keeper pulls the save, and then again quick to get on the rebound and get his brace. What did we think of Jota's performance? Did we obviously those two interventions came late in the game, but I thought he was having a reasonable game. I think for me, part of it is Greg Taylor sort of occupies that left side a little bit, so sort of like sometimes Jota gets missed out, but then like it's still, he still gets involved. But I think sort of Greg Taylor's almost playing the Jota pass, if you know what I mean, because he's better at it than say Bernabe. But I'm curious to get your thoughts, because I was having a bit of a discussion on Saturday with my dad about it. Anyone?
Yeah, I thought Jota had a reasonable game. I think in the first half in particular, I've only seen bits of the first half back. I haven't had a chance to watch the second, but he was making a lot of runs and the ball wasn't coming a lot of the time. And then the one time the ball did get through him with, I think it was Hatati, played a beautiful ball in behind. He actually was slightly offside. He got there and chipped the keeper, and the guy cleared it off the line. But I think a lot of the play came down the right-hand side in the first half, so he wasn't in it as much. But when we've spoken about Jota before, there's been times this season where he's not been having a great game, but he just doesn't stop. He keeps going. He keeps working hard. And then, as you say, Anthony, at the end of the game, he puts in a beautiful cross for Rowe, and then a cracking free kick. So, I mean, if that's him having a quiet game, and he's still coming up with 2 assists and then 1 cleared off the line, and I'm quite happy with that. And, I mean, we need to remember he's a second top scorer this year, and I think he's got the most assists. I think he's got maybe 12 goals and 11 assists or something like that, somewhere around that number. That's not a bad return for a wide player. So yeah, I'm quite happy with his performance on Saturday as well.
Yeah, same. I thought he had a pretty good game considering. Considering pretty much everybody had a good game. So, the bar was pretty high. He had a ball in the net as well. He was offside for that. He's just a little bit early on that run and on the one that gets cleared off the line. So you're operating on pretty fine margins from those positions. And yeah, you guys are right. Most of the play came down the right-hand side, particularly first half. But yeah, he kept going, got his rewards near the end. He had a lovely bit of skill second half right on the touchline where he sort of dragged the ball in and then flicked it out and opened the play up. And we've seen that little sort of half-back heel flick a few times over the last few weeks when it's probably not amounted to too much other than a nice bit of play and cutting some players out. So it kind of maybe goes unnoticed because the next phase of play doesn't really create much. But yeah, I thought he had a pretty decent game, and I'm a bit surprised to hear that he's becoming a whipping boy for your old man. But some Celtic fans need to have one for some reason.
There's always going to be one. There's always only one. Highlight.
It's always wingers. Alan Thompson used to get it.
James Forrest.
James Forrest still gets it. Didier Gat, he used to get it as well. I remember when I was at Celtic Park, it was whatever winger was closest to the stand you were on that was who was getting it. But it's a hard shift being a winger. A lot of low percentage plays, so don't really blame them in that sense. So let's move on to our talking points that we each brought. Paul, we can start with yours. Okay, do you want to present that for us, and we can all have a crack at whether we agree or disagree with your talking point from the game at the weekend?
Well, Anthony's already covered half of it, so but yeah, basically it was. I think that maybe there was a few in our fan base that are a bit quick to write off Iwata as a cover for centre back on the strength of a relatively poor game in an extremely weak in defence. And yeah, there wasn't much for him to deal with, but I think what he did, as Anthony said earlier, he dealt with well. The thing I liked was he seemed much more comfortable on the ball than Kobayashi has recently. Yep, to that point, I liked it when he was prepared to drop right to the byline and receive from Hart, and be absolutely comfortable receiving that, and then creating little triangles between Hart himself, AJ, sometimes himself, AJ, McGregor, sometimes Starfelt himself, and AJ or McGregor. So I thought he handled himself really well. We know he's good on the ball. He can pass off both feet, and he progresses the ball well. And he's done that again from the slightly deeper line position. I don't think there's a question mark for me that he's the one that starts in the cup final at the moment.
I'll agree, but with a caveat that if Stephen Welsh hadn't got injured, I'd be wanting Stephen Welsh in there. Obviously, Carter Vickers above all else, but from the available options.
Well,
if
I had
Stephen
this
Welsh
argument.
had played the last 4 games, I think he'd be starting. Because then Scally go very direct, get a lot of balls into the box, and I don't think that's a lot of strength. Yeah,
well, again, to the point about how we should have dealt with Maine last week. You just make Starfelt the guy that does that. But I had an argument, a minor argument on Twitter this week where I made the point that somebody else was saying, Welsh, if Welsh should fit, Welsh should have been playing. Welsh hasn't been near the team all season, and he's not been injured for all of it. Welsh has become one of these guys who's become a much better player for sitting in the stand. So I try not to be too controversial here, but if Welsh was anywhere near better than Iwata or Kobayashi or Starfelt, then he'd have had another chance at some point between now and the beginning of the season, which is the last time I think he played for any length of time. So that's my view on Welsh, unfortunately.
But Welsh played in the Champions League, and the problem was exposed there was his lack of pace. But we're not talking about Champions League here. We're talking Inverness Cali, who are going to put balls into the box, which is what we struggled with against St Mirren and what we struggled with against Hibs. I think Welsh should be more suited to that than Iwata. I'm agreeing with you, though, because Welsh is short of match fitness. I don't think that'd be a smart idea to put him in.
Well, Kobayashi's better. Kobayashi's better in the air than Iwata on the space of 2 or 3 games, but I still wouldn't pick him ahead of Iwata, to be honest.
Yeah, Tommy, Anthony.
Yeah, look, I find it hard to judge Iwata as a centre half up from a game like Saturday. To be honest, I would to me, he looks like a midfielder playing centre half, and if you put him under pressure at centre half. I mean, he get put under pressure against St Mirren and he didn't look too clever. Admittedly, as we've spoken about, he didn't have AJ on the right-hand side. So, for me, Kobayashi, for me, it'd be a bit of a toss-up between Kobayashi and Iwata at centre-half on Saturday. Depends on how Ange views how Inverness are going to play the game. Because Iwata's not that tall. He's pretty small. He's not that strong in the air. Maybe Kobayashi needs to come in for the height. I'm not sure, but it's a bit of a toy cost for me. In regards to Welsh is just, you can't play Welsh. He's been injured for a while and he's been out of the team, so it's not even an option. So it's between Kobayashi and Iwata. For me, as I said, I'm just still not sure about Iwata if he's put under pressure defensively. So, but then Kobayashi hasn't been that flash either. So, toss of a coin.
Do we think Cali will see what St Mirren have done and have a crack, or do we think they'll do what pretty much everyone else does and put 11 men behind the ball and hope to get a set play against us?
I think they've got to try and press us, because the teams that come out and pressed us and knocked us off our stride are the teams that have gotten something or were closer to getting something. The teams that sit back, they end up getting scalped. One way or another. It's a cup final, you don't have a go. So I would think that they're going to if they're going to have it, if they've got the best chance of winning against us would be harry us and presses and try and knock us off our game. I would have thought so. That'd be watching Celtic this year. Yeah,
I haven't seen a lot of them, but they're, just from what I can gather, they didn't finish very high up within their league below. So are they going to have the fitness to do that against us?
Well, they've been training for the last 3 or 4 weeks, though, haven't they? Like,
they've not had the game. Yeah.
So I don't know. My only 2 cents on the whole Awata playing centre half is a wee bit of like, isn't there a wee bit of near Beaton vibes about this? Like taking a central defensive midfielder and playing him at centre half. He's probably a bit better than it than near Beaton, but I think I think this is where Ange has gone down this road, and this is who's going to play the cup final. And it's just a means to an end. And then next season, it'll be next season, and we probably won't see it again. I'd be very surprised if we do. I think he's just Welsh got injured at a very unfortunate time in the season. Like an ideal world, CCV goes out, and then Welsh becomes available. And then you're thinking that, Kobayashi probably should have done better with the opportunities that he was given, but he wasn't even in the squad on the weekend. So I could say, is that an injury or was he dropped completely? We're not a bit unclear on that one. So I think based on that, I think Awata will start, and we'll get away with it. But obviously not an ideal situation, really, when you've got 4 centre halves and in your squad. Like it, ideally shouldn't be happening, but it is what it is.
Sounds like you're dipping your toe into your talking point there, Anthony. If you'd like to dive into it.
Well, I touched on it right at the start, Sean. It was just the fact that we flicked a switch on Saturday, put our strongest team out, and it was just business as usual. Like we were at it. And the criticism of Celtic for the last 3 or 4 games is that we haven't been at it. And Ange said, you make enough changes, you unsettle the squad, and it's clear that certain players in the squad are. Are they up to it? Are they going to be? Could you rely upon them for a part of the season if one of your first 11 players gets injured? Would you want to be playing a run of games with Bernabei and Anthony Ralston at fullback? Would you want to play a run of games where your only options off the bench are Rocco Vata or Ben Summers, or some of those games were a bit light on. So I definitely think we need to strengthen in the summer, and I just think that Ange is just sort of showing everyone that we're not as deep in certain positions as maybe we think we are. We've gone and handed Bain a 3-year contract, and then he throws 2 goals in against Hibs. I mean, unfortunate, and up until then he was playing well. But where's Big Segrist? Like, I know he's been injured, but I mean, like, just question marks all around the place. Like, players that haven't kicked the ball and yet they're injured and unavailable. So I'm sort of rambling a little bit, but I just think we've got a strong start in 11. But I made the point last week, we relied on the same 15, 17 players for most of the season. We need to broaden that out a bit and pad that out a bit and get that up to 2022 players we can rely on.
So kind of linked to your point there, my talking point was that when we increase the intensity, we get increased injury risk. And we've seen that with 3 injuries at the weekend. Fair enough, Alistair Johnson maybe doesn't count because he's coming back from an injury. But the broader point, I guess, is that when you have that sudden jump in intensity, are the body's not ready for it? Is that where those injuries have come from? Or, should we have been taking a kind of lower level intensity? Or is it really a result of having let ourselves down in the last few weeks? That we've had to make that jump, that we should have been, if we'd maintained it over weeks, then we wouldn't have had these injuries picked up. Tommy, what do you think? Is it a case of I guess I'm saying that it's the high intensity has caused these injuries, but I could see that there's also maybe an argument that raising the intensity from a much lower level might have been the cause. What do you reckon?
Look, I think, as I touched on earlier when I was talking about the game, in terms of how we played on Saturday, I think that we've sort of been off it for probably a couple of months, and the general intensity and the general relentlessness of a pressing and that sort of thing hasn't quite been there. And we've sort of just been eking out the results and doing enough to get the wins. I also think that for Trophy Day, Celtic always turn up. Celtic generally turn up and put on a performance for the fans on Trophy Day. And I always felt that Saturday was probably going to be another day like that. So I actually expect this to lift the intensity on Saturday for that. I think last year we beat Motherwell 6-0. I think we've beaten St Johnstone 7-0 on these kind of days. For me, the the body's capability to handle that intensity comes during your pre-season. You build your fitness base, and then you build on it, and it should be there. That's what gets you through the season. But for me, it's just been a long, hard season, and I think we've just raised it for one final effort. We've sort of probably been off it a little bit. So, but you're definitely right. As soon as you increase and you put the body under more stress, there's increased, chance of getting injuries. But one thing I would say to that is that if you look at this season as a whole compared to last season, you look at the amount of soft tissue injuries we got last season compared to this season, it's been a hell of a lot less, and the season's been a lot less impacted than it was last season. There was a lot of guys missing with soft tissues last year, so I think that goes back to getting the work done in pre-season. So, but for me, Saturday it was more about putting on a show for the fans. We've been a bit down, team have been changed, so yeah, that's my view.
Crossing over both those points to obviously, I agree with Anthony, and we said this last week that we need to strengthen the squad and we need it to be at a higher level of competition. But again, kind of to Sean's point, and to kind of what Tommy's just touched on there, we need to remember that all those guys that came in January had played a full season already. So they were on the same boat as Hatate last season, where he came in, he played a full season in Japan, he came on firing, and then by April he was gassed. Kobayashi obviously hasn't played as many games as that, but he's done a full season. Iwata's done a full season, and then they're in and out. And to Tommy's regular point, no, that's not easy. Ralston's the same. He's come back from injury. He's not really in. So whilst they haven't been at the level of the starters, and we probably do need, well, we almost certainly need to bring in players at a higher level to push the whole squad forward. I don't think we should be completely slating these guys until there's another preseason under their belt and we see some of these guys. They've had the last 4 or 5 months to settle in. They'll get a full preseason. Let's see how we shape up with some of them. For a lot of them are young, and a lot of them haven't really had a full preseason. So there'll be some that are probably on the fringes of disappearing, but I don't think it's as many as maybe has been hinted at in the last 2 or 3 weeks from a few below par performances in a bunch of dead rubbers.
Anthony, would you have started Alistair Johnston at the weekend?
I think you've got to. If you're going to play him in the cup final, I think you've got to see if he's fit or not. You can't start him in a cup final and then you've got to take him off after 20 minutes because he's not right. So I think he definitely was justified in playing him. Unfortunate, his body language didn't look great, I have to say. Of all the ones that came off, he was the one that I'm most worried about. I think Kyogo will be fine, but AJ was definitely the one that was remonstrating, and I'm thinking it would take quite a lot for him to come off. So it's the same ankle injury as well. Same ankle. So yeah. So I'm concerned about that. But I think in the same token, I think you've got to test it and see, and you got to get that consistency with your team as well. You can't just throw players in for cup finals. So I don't. He just said he was fit, and he took it. It was a knock as well. It wasn't like he just injured himself. So it's just one of those things. But yeah, he'd be the one I'd be sweating on if you're sort of talking about a cup final next week or this week.
Yeah, and I think Abad as well would be a major doubt for me because he pulled up on a sprint, and that normally means hamstring. So
he had the ice on the hamstring by the looks of it. So yeah, it didn't look great, unfortunately, because I agree with the guys. He did a great first half. That's
normally 3 weeks, so we'll see. Yeah. Tommy, you had one final talking point.
Yeah, mine was just I just really enjoyed seeing Starfelt score that third goal on Saturday.
Yeah, he enjoyed it as well, eh?
Yeah, I'm not a centre half, I'm a short ass, but I just loved seeing the ball going in sort of centre of the box, and I'm just getting up there and crashing a header in off the bar. I mean, he's should be doing that more often for us. I mean, he done it in the first half, I think, and keeper made a great save. And he's great defensively, obviously wins most of the balls in the air. So he could be a real threat for us next year. And hopefully if we hold on to him going into the Champions League, could be quite important for us. And that's one thing I think I touched on last time I was on a couple of weeks ago. In recent weeks, to me, it looks like we're taking a lot more corners into the box. For most of the first season and a half with Ange, we like the short corner, keep the ball moving, that sort of thing. Whereas recent times, we seem to be putting more balls into the box and trying to get people on the end of it. And I think that might be with an eye on Europe next year, because the way that we score a lot of our goals is playing through teams, putting balls in behind, cutting the ball across, Kyogo's in the middle of the box. But in Europe, we're maybe not going to get to be able to do that or have the same opportunities as often. So I think having a few strings to your bow, set pieces is one where a lot of the average teams, try and pinch a goal against us. So I think if that's something that we can add to our repertoire next year, I think it could be a really valuable weapon for us, particularly in the Champions League.
That's a really good segue, Tommy, because you know who's really good at putting a cross in the box for Celtic? Jacinta. She whips in a mean corner, and we absolutely bossed Rangers in the. Sorry, I'm totally flipping the script here. So women's
cool.
Cup final, Celtic 2, Rangers 0. We Fran going mental on the touchline. We absolutely bossed set pieces. You're sort of you're conditioned to think that Rangers have always had that air of superiority from set pieces, but in the women's game, total flip the script. Like we absolutely battered them. It just sent us whipping these deep lying crosses in, and Rangers defenses couldn't cope with it. Goals, two goals from corners or from set pieces. So goals to Nicole Flint and Ryden. And the second goal was she shot a flick on it, and it's just sort of looped into the back post, and that was like you just see all the Rangers girls just sort of put their heads down at that point. The Rangers captain, I want to call her Vicky Pollard, but it's Catherine Hill. She just puts this massive barge, a bit like the coach did to Fran a few weeks prior. Somehow only got a yellow card. So it was like assault.
Yeah,
I think it should have been a red card.
There's another one as well.
Oh yeah, it was a clothesline as well, and that apparently that didn't even get a yellow card. That was just an accident. I went, all right, women's game's pretty tough. And Rangers scored an offside goal near the end to maybe try and claw something back. But from all the highlights, we just had chance after chance. Shen, she was in on goal and she fluffed a chance. Didn't know whether she was shooting or trying to square it. Jacinta had a good chance. She was in two minds. We played them off the park, and but the set pieces, I must admit, the corner kicks, I was very, very impressed, and they just couldn't cope with us, and that's us, that's them back-to-back Scottish Cup winners, Celtic now.
Mm-hmm.
Rangers women still haven't won that one, and that's the first time that Celtic and Rangers women have met in a Scottish Cup final as well. So those are obviously Glasgow City's thereabouts, obviously.
Oh, was it Glasgow City we beat last year? I couldn't remember. Yeah, I enjoyed it. They should have been two reds. I see what you're talking about. And then on top of that, at the end of the game, that same one, Catherine Hill or whatever her name is, goes up, get her winner's medal straight off. Absolute bitter losers. It was like, it's just in the culture there, isn't it? Like, and we had, we had there was 10,500 fans. What's the actual number? 10,000.
446.
400. Yeah, 10,446, and they reckon about 7+ was Celtic fans. So they were all doing the huddle and everything. It was a great atmosphere. Paul, you watched a bit of it?
Yeah, a kind of couple of key mentions. Tash Flint obviously got the opener. Been an absolute revelation since we signed her from Leicester on loan in January. Filled the gap when we lost our previous top goal scorer. So yeah, hopefully we can maybe tie her down on a longer term deal. And great to see Caitlin Hayes sprint nearly half the length of the pitch to get to Cathy Hill and in her face after she was going after Amy Gallagher, who was about half her height. So good bit of. I know she's not the skipper all the time. I think Clark's still skipper, but she's filled in now and again, and she definitely showed some quality leadership to go with her Player of the Year awards by getting right in the face and towering over her and sticking up for her teammates. So great result for the girls to finish on a high. 2 trophies and obviously very close in the league. So yeah, bodes well for next year. I was reading just yesterday that the budget, bizarrely, we've got the 4th biggest budget in women's football in Scotland. So Rangers, depending on who you believe, somewhere between 1 and 1.5 mil. Glasgow City somewhere between 500,000 and 750. Hearts apparently more than that, and we're sitting about 350 for the total budget, which
bizarre.
I found quite surprising. And you'd like to think that the success that they've developed this year on that kind of budget will see them get a higher budget and potentially get them to push on to winning trebles.
The story is Tasha Flint might be going to Sevco.
Really?
That's the story, yeah.
Well, I'd
Can't
be
we say-
surprised because there's footage of her, there's a photo of her from Twitter where she was right in the middle of the
Glasgow
post-league
Cross, yeah.
celebrations with a green bit of pyro in her hand. So
I've seen
I'd
that.
be quite surprised if she then flicked the switch and jumped to them. But you never know. Stranger things have happened, but I doubt it.
Tommy, what did you make of the Glasgow Cross celebrations? Did you see the drone footage?
Yeah, the drone was incredible. Yeah, it was sort of similar to what I said earlier. It's just that it just sort of makes you want to be there, doesn't it? And enjoy it and soak it up. Sort of takes you back. Then I think it was in Trongate. Yeah, it was unbelievable. And when you compare how we celebrate to a certain other club over the city, it's quite incredible. It was looks like a great day. And people say, "Oh, do you ever get sick of? You must get sick of winning things all the time." But how do you ever get sick of winning things? How do you ever get sick of experiencing that kind of experience? All the Celtic fans coming together, and it's it looked incredible, and great play to all the fans that were there.
Oh yeah, like you never know when the last when it's going to be a big spell between drinks. Like when we won it in '88, we probably didn't think it was going to be another 10 years till we won another one. When we went to Seville, there was some people like, "Oh, I'll just go next time," like that. It's true though. You can't take it for granted because you could just have this big spell. Like, look at the Sevco fans have been enjoying for the last 12 years. They enjoyed it too much last year. So yeah, that's kind of false equivalence of trying to say that the Glasgow Cross celebration was the same as the George Square riots. Yeah, Celtic we had volunteers out cleaning up. We were paying for people to go down and help out, and if they're calling for us to pay the bill, I'm pretty sure we will, to be honest. Anthony, you got something to say on it?
I was just trying to say the whataboutery on Twitter the last couple of days has been astounding, like try to compare it to that. And I'm really like, oh, why is the SNP not calling it out? It's like, well, you weren't having a full-on brawl in the middle of the city centre, were they? They were just celebrating and having a good time and cleaned up their mess afterwards. So, I mean, it's like it's comparing an apple to a bowling ball. It's just, yeah, it's ridiculous. But, it's Twitter, but,
Yeah, there'd be more arrests at Tea in the Park, and nobody's calling for Tea in the Park to get banned. I know it's gone now, but you know what I mean. In terms of, you get what I'm saying. There's a couple of comments here. It was incredible being there from Boy Fan. Patrick McLaughlin, I didn't go because I don't drink now. I just feel out of place. I wonder if that's an issue. But if there's maybe Celtic should be doing something different, Paul. Should they be putting something on closer to Celtic Park, more organised, more structured, better policed? I mean, otherwise people are just going to head out and do this, right?
Organised fun. I suppose you could do organised fun, but people are always going to do their own thing as well, aren't they? Like, and it's thousands and thousands of people there. That's it's a hard one to try and coordinate exactly. How much space you're going to need, but yeah, I'm sure there's I guess you don't have to go to a street party if whether you drink or not, but I'm sure people that don't drink have plenty of fun in other ways and watching at home or whatever else. I think at the end of the day, as long as we win, that's the most important thing. I think Boy Fan, I think, is my mother, and she was at the game and at the street party, so fair play to her.
Fair enough.
Hi, Paul's mom.
Yeah, I won't say anything. So just to rhyme off some other news, I'll just really quickly summarise what happened in England since it was the end of the season. So in the English version of the Scottish Premier League, we had Man City, Arsenal, Man United and Newcastle in Champions League, who will all be potential opponents for us next year. Set maybe Newcastle, who I think will be in the same pot as us. So we could be getting Arsenal, Man City or Man United. We've not had Arsenal in the group stages before, so that would be an interesting one. Liverpool and Brighton got Europa League spots, Aston Villa in the Conference League. No European football for Spurs and Chelsea, which obviously could be critical for reasons that I don't want to talk about in case I jinx it. And Leicester, Leeds and Southampton got relegated, which is get it up you to Brendan Rodgers, and Southampton means Stuart Armstrong is gone down to the Championship. Any thoughts on any of that in England, in the caricature of football that is English?
I think the most interesting thing out of England that's happened is Luton won the playoff, didn't they? So obviously it's had a lot of airtime on social media, but that the rickety old Kenilworth Road may or may not be involved in Premier League football next year. I'm not sure if they're going to be allowed to use that stadium or if they'll be sharing somewhere else. But yeah, great story to see them come all the way back from non-league football to the top division, as we touched on last week, in the space of 30 years.
Mm-hmm. Tommy, who would you want to get in the Champions League if it was an English team?
Oh, jeez. I'd probably have to say either Arsenal or Newcastle, given that we haven't had them before. I've had to pick probably Newcastle. It'd be nice to beat the Saudi Arabians.
And Eddie Howe.
And Eddie Howe,
And Eddie Howe, yeah.
I think
actually
Brendan. I was just trying to say Brendan Rodgers to Tottenham. That's my. Those two deserve each other. So that's my hot tip for this week.
I'm crossing all my fingers, toes, and testicles. Come on, make it happen.
He's no growing.
They can have a. Did they want Michael Beale? He's the best manager in Scotland.
They can have him. They won't do very well, but they can have him.
Beale must stay. You guys were. I didn't add it to run sheet, but you guys were chatting about it earlier. Peter McGowan's mentioned it. Did you see Hamburg celebrating their promotion?
Absolutely
only for the
brilliant.
Other team playing, scoring 2 goals in injury time to steal promotion instead. I've not seen it. Talk us through it, Paul.
Yeah. So basically, I think Hamburg won their match. I think late goal, or relatively late goal. They win their match, and their match finishes, and they think that that's enough to get them up, potentially even the title. I'm not 100% sure. The team they're playing is getting beat, I think, 2-1 at this point. And then, so the full pitch invasion, that happens. They're all super celebrating. And then they realize the game hasn't finished at the other ground. They thought obviously it was about to finish. About 11 minutes of added on time. And they scored twice in added on time. And not only does that knock Hamburg out of promotion, the team that and I can't remember the how you pronounce them. Heidenheim. Heidenheim. It not only gets them promotion, but it gets them a championship as well. So pretty major turnaround. They were 2-0 down at one point as well. So 2-0 down, then it was 2-1, and 2 goals in injury time. So it was pretty fantastic turnaround, and always good to see Hamburg absolutely gutted. They can come to Ibrox with another bunch of losers and play a preseason friendly, as I think is planned or is happening.
Yeah,
and I think there was some Rangers flags in the Hamburg crowd as well. So
there always is.
Enjoyable.
Always is. I'm just looking at it now, and Heidenheim did win on the league on goal difference. Darmstadt second. Hamburg are in the playoffs, so hopefully they stay down there. Unfortunately, San Poli finished 5th, which is our Jackson Irvine team. A lot of Celtic links. That would have been nice for them to come back up, but maybe they'll be playing some derbies against Hamburg next season. In Scotland, we had Dundee United relegated. Let's move on from that quickly. Ross County
and then but they gave Jim a 2-year deal. Like you're relegated.
Contract.
Here's 2 years. Like, you get us back up, mate. Like, and then in the statement they said, he assembled a really good squad at Aberdeen. They actually put that in their statement. I mean, Aberdeen were absolute dross under him.
Every team's done better after he's left. Like, St Mirren done better after he left. Aberdeen did better after he left. Like, I love the guy to do well because he's an ex-Celt, but his record is poor, right? Every team does worse, or better off after he leaves, right? Anyway, Hearts Hibs, the Rammy. Did anyone catch that, Tommy? Did you see the on-field Rammy with Hearts and Hibs?
No, only seen little snippets of it, mate. I think the Lee Johnson gives Steve Naismith a little tap in the tummy or something and say something.
It was all handbags, really.
Yeah, I only saw little snippets and haven't read the story, to be honest. So, the only thing I did notice is touching on what we were talking about earlier is I think the Hibs manager was complaining about the amount of time that Hearts were wasting against them. So I think he's complaining about time wasting again. So nice to see we aren't the only ones that it affects.
Yeah. I watched the SPFL highlights had nothing on it, none of it. They cut it short, so I had to watch some camera phone footage of it. And if it was Celtic Sevco, there'd been a riot, it'd be like a government meeting and stuff. But it was handbags, really. Anthony,
same game.
I was just astounded that if Hibs had won that, they would have finished 4th. Hibs, by all accounts, had a pretty crap season, really, and then Hearts have supposedly had a great season, and yet Hearts had to get a result there to get 4th place. I mean, it's incredible, really. It's how the narrative gets spun, but it's just I just find that crazy that like Hibs should actually pip them had they won that game.
I think it was February. You had Aberdeen and Hibs playing in the game called El Sacico because whoever lost the game was going to get the sack. Jim Goodwin gets sacked. Then Aberdeen going to finish third and Hibs going to finish almost in fourth. Like one, and they had some chances. One goal away from being the third and fourth place team after playing off in the El Sacico a couple of months ago. Mental. Paul, any further comments?
Sorry, the only thing was just Peter McGloin's just pointed out there that it was a fan assaulting a Hibs player.
Oh, I forgot about that as well.
So that's rubbish, and that needs to be stamped out. Like, that's just absolutely not on this. Under those circumstances, should that ever happen? So again, I think that's not the first time it's happened there either. But it's just that's they're good.
Reputation time castle, isn't it? Neil Lennon knows all about it.
And wasn't there a couple other players as well? I think. I can't remember now. I'm sure there was someone else got it too, but those fans are pretty poor at times. The only thing I didn't like from Hibs was that their statement was about that. Like they shouldn't have made a public statement after everything that had gone on. They should have just kept that private. But they've came out and tried to deflect from everything by making what is a shocking action. But they shouldn't have been trying to play public deflection tactics, I don't think. Paul, before we go back to Celtic, anything else to add on the happenings of Scottish football, English football, ups and downs?
No. Are we doing final thoughts as well as the other thing? Or
let's do it. Let's circle back to the Celtic game. Any final thoughts on the Celtic Aberdeen game, Trophy Day, and then we'll do the rounds for man of the match?
No, I was just going to say, are we doing something different final thoughts? But maybe we're not got time for that this week. But that's okay. No, I'm all good on the game, to be honest. I think looking forward to the cup final.
Who's your man of the match, Paul?
Yeah, go for it. We didn't really talk about any individual. There was one we kind of mentioned, but we didn't really come to any kind of driving consensus on it. Nobody dominated the coverage.
Yeah. So I thought Hatate was excellent, and well done to him and Maeda and Kyogo on their call up. Hence, as Sean referenced earlier, the Samurai Blue is on this evening, and of those three, I'm giving it to Kyogo. I thought he was excellent.
One vote for Kyogo. Anthony.
Kyogo. He got the party started, and that goal is worthy of Golden Boot. That first goal. So Kyogo for me.
Tommy.
Yeah, look, Kyogo's up there for me, definitely. But to be a little bit different, I'll go for Hatate. I think you could have picked any one of the midfield three. I thought they were all tremendous, but I thought Hatate, just some of his touches, particularly in the first half, his movement, the run he actually makes to create the space for Kyogo's first goal was a great run. And he also had the added benefit of Graham Shinney trying to shoulder him off the ball, and Shinney just bounced off him onto the ground. So that sort of clinched it for me.
So we've got 2 for Kyogo and 1 for Hatate. Peter McGlone in the comments is saying Hatate man of the match, O'Reilly close second. I'm kind of on board with Tommy here, and that I thought the midfield 3, I could have picked any one of them. If I was picking it at half time, I probably would have said Callum McGregor. But I think overall in the game, I would have actually given it to Rio Hatate as well. So we've got 2 votes for Kyogo, 2 for Hatate. We'll call it a draw, unless we can count Peter McGlone's vote as the tiebreaker. Let's do it. We'll take it, Tommy. We got to win here. So we'll just sign off. We are running over. So, any final thoughts? Sign off. Any music recommendations? What are you doing this week, Paul? Let's quickly run around the room.
Yeah. So, a couple of little real quick things. Just watched the Succession finale before I came on air. I've mentioned this a couple of times, and I know it's been mentioned in other shows, but that is one of the best TV shows no spoilers, but that is one of the best TV shows in a long, long time. So if you've not got on it, you've got 4 seasons to get through, which is great. Stick to my music recommendations. I'm going to do one that's a year old, bizarrely, but I've been got into it at the time and been re-listening to it a lot in the last few weeks, which is Everything's sixth album, which is Raw Data Feel. Absolutely brilliant. If you're across everything, great. It's another one of their brilliant albums. If you aren't, you've got 6 albums to get through, and I would start with the most recent, which is Raw Data Feel.
Just Paul, Anthony.
I've started watching Succession, so I'm through the first season. So thanks for the recommendation, Paul. But I've been trying to like avoid Twitter today because it's like it's just everywhere you go, like talk about the finale. So I'm trying to I miss that completely. My wife has become the most massive Formula One fan. Like it's like insanely obsessed with it. So I'm just like sat and watched the Monaco Grand Prix last night. So the rain made that a bit interesting, but yeah, it's just I've. Like if only she could dedicate herself to Celtic, that would be great. But unfortunately, it's Formula One. So what are you gonna do?
Sorry for that, Anthony. I feel your pain, Tommy.
I made a similar mistake probably a couple of years ago. I introduced my wife and my youngest daughter to Drive to Survive, so they're in the same boat. They're
That's how they got into it. Yeah,
massive F1 fans. So they were watching the race last night. Doesn't really hold much interest for me, but yeah, no, look, in terms of recommendation, I hadn't really thought about anything, but in terms of music, I'll just throw one band out there. You may or may not have heard from them. I think they're from Glasgow. Myself and my daughter are coming over to Australia in August. Myself and my 20-year-old daughter are heading over to Melbourne to see them, called The Snuts. Their first album, The Snuts.
Spelled it?
SNUTS.
The Snuts. Great band, young band. They brought out the first album, I think, maybe around six months ago, somewhere around there. Paul might know better than me. But yeah, great band, some cracking tunes. And yeah, if you've not listened to them, give them a listen. They're a good band.
Thanks, guys. My final thoughts are just going to be, can you please like our podcast on YouTube, this specific episode, as well as subscribing if you haven't already subscribed. Really benefits us. All the other socials are along the top, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Give us a follow and a like. Please listen into our shows Tuesday, Wednesday. Thanks to everyone that's been involved in the comments. Really helps us keep things going and tap into what people outside of this closed circle of four are thinking about. So that's very beneficial to us as well. Other than that, just have a good week. Enjoy our other shows. Let's get a good build up to the cup final. Hopefully have a good party and really do enjoy success because, you know, we've been going since 1888, which is 135 years, something like that. And we've had 7 trebles in that time of 135 years. So if we get an 8th one, which will be a world record this weekend, then do appreciate it. Do remember where you were, who you were watching it with, like put a mental bookmark, take some pictures. It might be could be 25 years before we have another one. We just don't know. Maybe we'll have another one next year. Maybe it'll be very few in the rest of your life. So just enjoy it. Other than that, sign off, guys. Hail, hail.
Hail, hail.